Chairman James Comer. Mr. Chairman, it's good to see you. Thanks very much for being here. And you say today is the first step in examining the coordination between the federal government and big tech. Tell us more.
Well, what we're going to find out today is exactly what role the government played in censoring free speech, specifically censoring the Hunter Biden laptop story, because so much of our investigation with respect to the Biden family corruption, so much of the evidence is contained on the laptop. And to think that the federal government played a role in censoring this story, all the while they had the laptop. So what is the situation here where our federal government would be involved in telling a big tech platform that this story that you're about to receive, first of all, how did they know that New York Post was about to publish the story? But secondly, what gave you the right to say that this was Russian disinformation when you had the contents of the laptop? So there's so many questions. We have 26 Republicans on this committee, very eager to ask Twitter a lot of questions and begin the process of holding them accountable.
Yeah, and I don't even think that it ends there, because when you consider the fact that the FBI was given that laptop in what, October 2019?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's
so
right. They had
October
it almost
2019. A year. Yeah. And then they went and sat quietly while President Trump was getting impeached over a phone call he had with the president of Ukraine. And yet they had all that information from that laptop of the $1 million a year that Hunter Biden was receiving from Ukraine officials. So they didn't say anything about that, and yet they pursued an impeachment of a sitting president.
Very concerning. This is another low mark for the FBI. That's going to be a big focus of our reform efforts in the Republican majority to reform the FBI. But with respect today, as you know, Maria, we're leading the Biden family corruption investigation. A lot of the mainstream media still have in their mind that the laptop may be compromised, the laptop may not be real. That's primarily because of the FBI's efforts, not just with their time, but also with the staff and with money, with our tax dollars, paying Twitter for their time so they could spend so much time and tell them that this story is Russian disinformation. You need to ban the White House chief of staff or the White House press secretary from her Twitter account. You need to suppress anyone who tries to amplify this story because it's just not true, when they knew the whole time it was true.
Yeah, and partly it's a situation where you've got government officials going to work at Twitter. I mean, look at James Baker. He was the general counsel of the FBI, one of the architects of pushing that Russia collusion lie forward, letting it go viral across the world when, in fact, he had to know it wasn't true. They knew it wasn't true because they had Igor Danchenko tell them in January 2017 that it was all embellished. We were having beers. We made it up. And yet they still pushed for FISA warrants to oversee and to surveil Trump associates, even though they knew it wasn't. Then he goes to Twitter and he continues his politicking. You said Biden crime family a couple of times. Tell us specifically where you see the crime. Because, Congressman, we've seen reports and we've seen evidence on the laptop of tens of millions of dollars that Biden's family has taken in from the Communist Party. But this is really getting downright dangerous with this spy flight able to oversee America and surveil our military sites with nuclear silos. Is it just that he's so compromised he won't do anything about the provocations of Communist China? What do you know about this crime?
Well, it's odd that the president never stands up to China. It's odd that China continues to embarrass the United States, specifically Joe Biden, on the world stage. The balloon incident was just another example. What we know from the laptop is that the Biden family received millions and millions of dollars from communist China, from Ukraine, from adversaries in Russia. Now, I have the suspicion, Maria, that these people weren't giving the Biden family millions and millions of dollars without getting something in return. And what we are focusing in on is exactly the areas where we believe that Joe Biden not only met with these adversaries who were paying his family, paying the Biden Center, paying all the Biden family interests millions of dollars, even though Joe Biden said he never met with them, but also certain decisions that we believe that Joe Biden made as a result of his family receiving all this money. That's where the administration will be compromised, and that's where every American should be concerned and should be happy that there's finally a legislative body in Congress that's seriously looking into this and trying to get answers for the American people to where we can hold people accountable for any public corruption.
And as part of that oversight, you have requested details on the 150 suspicious activity reports. These are reports that the banks they have to report it to the Treasury when something looks suspicious. What are we talking about? Money being moved between Hunter Biden accounts? What are these suspicious activity reports? And why don't you have access to it? You're the chairman of the Oversight Committee. Joe Biden basically ended Congress's access to the suspicious activity reports when he went into the Oval Office. Is that right?
That's right. One of the first rule changes Joe Biden made was he changed the rules to where chairman of committees couldn't have access to the suspicious activity reports. Every chairman of a committee over the last 3 administrations had access to these suspicious activity reports. And these are generated through suspicious foreign transactions. If you get a large foreign transaction into an account that has very little activity, you're going to get a suspicious activity report. If you get a wire from an account that is unmarked or anonymous, you're going to get a suspicious activity report. If you're transferring money around from account to account, like in a money laundering type scheme, you're going to get a report. So also the people that, if you do business with foreign nationals that are on certain lists for the federal government, lists of being investigated for whatever reason, international crime, what have you, then you trigger a suspicious activity report. So this family has at least 150, and we believe many more than that.
Wow.
We've requested that from Treasury. They continue to block. The last letter I got, Maria, said, well, we got your request for suspicious activity reports, which is about our 4th request. I said, we're currently evaluating to determine whether or not you really need those reports, which is preposterous. It's another example of this administration stonewalling and blocking our congressional oversight.
Well, I mean, that leads me to my next question. What are you going to do about it? You're getting stonewalled. Are you going to hold them in contempt?
We're going to do everything we can with Treasury, but right now we're focusing on the banks, and I believe that one way or the other, very soon we'll get those suspicious activity reports from the banks.
By the way, your committee also holding its first hearing on the border yesterday, featuring Border Patrol agents. Democrats used their time to minimize the crisis instead, saying that it's not President Biden's fault. What did you learn at that hearing, and where is that going? What are you trying to accomplish? What are you going to get to in terms of this border hearing?
This was the first time Border Patrol agents have been in front of the House Oversight Committee for the entire time Joe Biden's been president.
Unbelievable.
What we learned is the Democrats want an open border policy. To suggest, as Republicans do, that we need to secure the border, in the Democrats' eyes in Congress, we were white supremacists. We were racist. I mean, it's a joke. They have no intention of securing the border. They're delusional when they say that the fentanyl's not coming from across that border. It is. Joe Biden mentioned that in his State of the Union address. If you want to cut the fentanyl off, secure the border, and that's where we are as Republicans, and we're going to continue to fight to get this administration to do its job in protecting the homeland.
Congressman, we'll be watching all of that. Thanks very much. We'll be watching your important work.